What's going on, YouTubers, gamers, and hobbyists? Welcome to this episode of Board Games and delving into Cluedo. And obviously, that's my Cluedo game in the picture there. It's by Parker Brothers. Now, we know that Parker Brothers had Monopoly, and then Waddington's took over that. We know that from the last video. So what we're going to do is delve into the history a little bit of the company of Parker Brothers, and then talk a little bit about the game of Cluedo itself. Now, Parker Brothers was founded by George S. Parker. Parker's philosophy deviated from the prevalent theme of board game design. He believed that games should be played for enjoyment and did not need to emphasize morals and values. Very sensible man, so we get more enjoyment out of it. He created his first game called Banking in 1883 when he was just 16. Banking is a game in which players borrowed money from the bank and tried to generate wealth by guessing how well they could do. The game included 160 cards which foretold their failures or successes. The game was so popular among family and friends that his brother Charles Parker urged him to publish it. George approached two Boston publishers with the idea, but was unsuccessful. Not discouraged, he spent $40 to publish 500 sets of Banking. He eventually sold all but 12 copies, making a profit of $100. George Swinnerton, Charles Hanford, and Edward Hegman, the Parker brothers. Parker founded his game company, initially called the George S. Parker Company, in his hometown of Salem, Massachusetts, in 1883. When George's brother Charles joined the business in 1888, the company's name was changed to its more familiar form, obviously Parker Brothers. In 1898, a third brother, Edward H. Parker, joined the company. For many years, George designed most of the games himself and wrote all the rules. Many games were based on important events of the day. Klondike was based on the Alaskan Gold Rush, and the War of Cuba was based on the impending Spanish-American War. The game industry was growing and the company was becoming very profitable. In 1906, Parker Brothers published the game Rook, for their most successful card game to this day, and it quickly became the best-selling game in the country during the Great Depression, a time when... Sorry, I'll start that again. During the Great Depression, a time when many companies went out of business, Parker Brothers released a new board game called Monopoly. We've talked about that in the Monopoly video. Although the game was originally rejected, blah 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 blah. So I won't go into that. Parker Brothers marketed its first puzzle in 1887. The most highly sought Parker puzzles are the wooden Parker pastimes. Parker also introduced children's puzzles as well as the climax Jig-a-Jig, Jigwood, and Paramount Lines. According to Jigsaw Puzzles, an illustrated history and price guide by Ann D. Williams, Parker Brothers closed the pastime line in the 1950s and their die-cut puzzles were phased out in the late 1970s. Even after George Parker's death, the company remained family-owned until 1968, when General Mills purchased the company. After this, Parker Brothers purchased the first Nerf ball, which became another major national hit. In the UK, during the 1970s, Parker Brothers was the games division of Palitoy, also a General Mills company, and produced a variety of releases such as Escape from Colditz. By the turn of the decade, the company relocated to Beverly, Massachusetts. The company began to produce electronic versions of their popular board games in the late 1970s and early 1980s. At this time, the company ventured into the toy market with the electronic action figure Rom the Space Knight in 1977. Although the toy proved a failure, the licensed comic book published by Marvel Comics ran for years, and the toy was discontinued. They also produced video games for various systems during the early 1980s, with home ports of many popular arcade games like Sega's Frogger and Gottlieb games like Q*bert and Reactor, as well as the first video games based on the Star Wars movies, The Empire Strikes Back, Jedi Arena, and Death Star Battle. In early 1983, Parker Brothers spent $15 million establishing a book publishing branch. Their first titles featuring the American Greetings franchises Care Bears and Strawberry Shortcake. The Routes published 12 titles by February 1984. Sales of these books totaled 3.5 million units. The Parker Brothers also operated a record label around the same time. One of its releases based on Colco's Cabbage Patch Kids and involving Tom and Stephen Chapin. No, it could be, was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America in July 1984. In 1985, General Mills merged the company with their subsidiary Kenner. This new company, Kenner Parker Toys Inc., was acquired by Tonka in 1987. Tonka, including Parker Brothers, was bought in 1991 for about $516 million by Hasbro, which also owned the Milton Bradley Company. Following the acquisition, Parker Brothers continued to have its corporate offices in Beverly, but the production of the games were moved to Milton Bradley's headquarters in East Longmeadow. In 1998, Parker Brothers and Milton Bradley were consolidated at the new Hasbro Games campus, based in Parker Brothers' former headquarters. Now that's Parker Brothers, so I won't need to go into that again. If we come across another Parker Brothers game on this series, so it's important to get the background for it. But the history of the game of Cluedo. Okay, in 1944, Anthony E. Pratt, an English musician, applied for a patent of his invention of a murder mystery themed game, originally named Murder. Shortly thereafter, Pratt and his wife Elva Pratt, 1913 to 1990, who had helped in designing the game, presented it to Waddington's executive Norman Watson, who immediately purchased it and provided its trademark name of Cluedo, a play on Clue and Ludo. Ludo is Latin for I play. Though the patent was granted in 1947 due to post-war shortages in the UK, the game was not officially launched by Waddington's until 1949. It was simultaneously licensed to Parker Brothers in the US for publication, where it was renamed Clue, along with other minor changes. There were several differences between the original game concept that initially published in 1949. In particular, Pratt's original design calls for 10 characters, one of whom was to be designated the victim by random drawing prior to the start of the game. These 10 included the eliminated Mr. Brown, Mr. Gold, Miss Grey, and Mrs. Silver. The characters of Nurse White and Colonel Yellow were renamed Mrs. White and Colonel Mustard for the actual release. The game allowed for play of up to 8 remaining characters, providing for 9 suspects in total. Originally there were 11 rooms, including the eliminated gun room and cellar. In addition, there were 9 weapons, including the unused bomb, syringed shillelagh, which is a walking stick, cudgel, fireplace poker, and the later used axe and poison. Some of these unused weapons and characters appeared later in spin-off versions of the game. Some gameplay aspects were different as well. Notably, the remaining playing cards were distributed into the rooms to be retrieved, rather than dealt directly to the players. Players also had to land on another player in order to make suggestions about the player's character through the use of special counter tokens, and once exhausted, a player could no longer make suggestions. There were other minor differences, all of which were later updated by the game's initial release and remain essentially unchanged in the standard classic detective game editions of the game. The game consists of a board which shows the rooms, you should all know this, corridors and secret passages of an English country house called Tudor Mansion, named Tudor Close, Tudor Hall, Body Manor or Body Mansion in some editions, in Hampshire, England in 1926. Right, the game box also includes several coloured playing pieces to represent characters, miniature murder weapon props, 1 or 2 six-sided dice, 3 sets of cards describing the aforementioned rooms, characters or weapons, solution cards, envelope to contain 1 card from each set of cards, and a detective's notepad on which are printed lists of rooms, weapons and characters, so players can keep detailed notes during the game. Right, suspects. The figurines and traditional set of North American and UK suspect tokens. Depending on edition, the playing pieces are typically made of coloured plastic, shaped like chess pawns or character figurines. Mine are actually wooden, the ones you can see in there. Occasionally they are made from wood or pewter, The standard edition of Cluedo comes from 6 basic tokens representing these original characters. Miss Scarlet, Professor Plum, well, Miss Scarlet in North American versions after 1963 is a red piece. Professor Plum is a purple piece. Mrs. Peacock is a blue piece. Reverend Mr. Green in North American versions and Reverend Green in later UK versions is a green piece. Colonel Mustard is a yellow piece. Mrs. Orchid is a pink piece. Weapons. The weapon tokens are typically made of unfinished pewter, with the exception of the rope, which may be made of plastic, metal, or string, depending on edition. Special editions have included gold-plated, brass-finished, and sterling silver versions, which have appeared in a variety of designs. Candlestick, dagger, knife in most North American editions. Lead pipe, called lead piping in earlier UK editions, and the early tokens were made out of actual lead and therefore pose a risk of lead poisoning. Revolver. That was first depicted in the UK as a Dracy M1 1907 semi-automatic pistol, and in North America as a Colt M1911 pistol. Beginning in 1972, all editions typically now represent an Allen and Thurber pepper box revolver. Rope. Spanner, which is wrench in North American editions and depicted as a monkey wrench, may also be shown as an open-ended spanner in some traditional UK versions. Okay, and then the rooms. We've got 9 rooms in the mansion where the murder can take place, laid out in circular fashion on the game board, separated by pathways overlaid by playing spaces. Each of the 4 corner rooms contains a secret passage that leads to the room on the opposite diagonal corner of the map. The centre room, often referred to as the cellar or stairs, is inaccessible to the players, but contains the solution envelope and is not otherwise used during gameplay. Coloured start spaces encircle the outer perimeter, which correspond to each player's suspect token. Each player starts at the corresponding coloured space. And that's, the bit about the history of the game in a nutshell. But yeah, so I will talk about this game as I open the box of my version. So without further ado, let's head on over to that. Okay, so this is my game of Cluedo. As you can see, it's in a wooden box. Now this comes from the Parker Brothers Nostalgia Game series. So I'm not sure if that makes it like a deluxe version or whatever. I don't think it's anything that's really deluxe as such, but like that. But we'll just take the lid off. Nice wooden box. So on the underside of the lid, got the whodunit little blurb thing. Got a little bit of tiny bit of history here. It says Cluedo is now sold in over 40 different countries. The phenomenon has spawned many versions over the years, including the 1949 edition recreated here. Cluedo has even been made into a film, TV show and play. There's no question as to the world's favourite detective game. Since 1949, the answer is Cluedo. So, the name Cluedo is a play on words clue and ludo, which means I play in Latin. In Brazil, the game is called Detective, and in Japan, the Mystery Game. In any language, it means classic crime-solving fun. I realise I'm going backwards here. In 1944, a retired clerk in England named Anthony Pratt invented a game he called Murder. His wife designed the board. When it became popular among friends, he brought it to Waddington's Games in Leeds, England. They knew it was a winner and began producing the game in 1949. So, and that's the classic characters there. Professor Plum, Mrs. Peacock, Reverend Green, Colonel Mustard, Miss Scarlet, Mrs. White. Anyway, we'll pop that to one side. So we're concerned this is a game, obviously. The only annoying thing about this is you've got to kind of flip it up to get the board up. Now, the board is one of those that I've mentioned before. the fold into 4 affair, because games always used to be just in like a 2 board, but now it seems to be popular to have them as a 4. So there's the board looking good. The rules to the game, really very simple. Score sheets here. Two different sorts of dice, don't know why that is. Not sure on that one. Pencils for the score cards there, the counters, and these curious murder weapons. It's got a lead pipe, wrench, the revolver or pistol, candlestick holder, dagger. This here looks like a plastic length of rope. Don't know why that one's plastic and the others are metal. Not sure on that one. Then of course you've got your cards, which so you've got the rooms of the house, characters, murder weapons. Here we are. There you go, and that's it. And you all know how to play this, but this gives you a little pocket to put the clues in and whatnot. So that's all there. So I haven't played it for a few years actually, but that is it, essentially. So if I move my board to one side, and it's got it on the back there as well. Move that over there. So you've got all the rooms of the house, the people, and the murder weapons. Yeah, all there. So there it is. That is my version of Cluedo. It's in exceptional condition. So there's nothing to do here to kind of restore it as such. I mean, I will have games, believe me, that I come across that will need that. But now Cluedo, I was first introduced to Cluedo by my cousins actually. I was introduced to a lot of games through my cousins, and I used to go over there, and I didn't really know what I was doing in this game, to be honest. When I was only a small child at the time, so I was just more concerned rolling a dice and moving a counter forward, so doing that kind of thing. As a game, I feel I've always felt as a game it's kind of lacking something, well, some element, maybe some other threat of some sorts that goes around the board. I don't know, but it seems to me you can play the game. You don't really need to be moving around the board to get to the rooms. I don't think you could do it a different way. It could almost just be a card game. That's what I feel personally. But do I like the game? It's okay. I'm not blown away by it. Never have been. It's okay. I have more. I've got more favoured versions of the kind of mystery game, as it were. But yeah, it's all right. It's okay. Yeah, like I say, I'm not blown away by it, but it's not bad. I think perhaps it shows its age. I don't think there's any way on earth you'd get it published if it was to be created today. But that's just me. That's just my reasoning. So, but yeah, there it is. That is my game of Cluedo. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more board games coming up in the future. Remember, all brushes lead to war, and bye for now. Bye bye.